My daughter paid a man to marry me. She hired a con artist to be my loving husband so they could steal my life savings and have me committed. They thought I was just a lonely old woman too foolish to see their plot. They forgot I know how to listen. Before I begin, thank you for being here, for being part of this community. This is a place where we tell the stories that need to be told. The truths of mothers, grandmothers, and wives who have been silenced, disrespected, and underestimated. If you believe in the power of a woman finding her voice and reclaiming her dignity, you are in the right place. Please, let me know in the comments where you're listening from. It means the world to me. Now, let me tell you what they did. My name is Loretta Gibbs, and at 65, I had become a connoisseur of silence. The year since my husband of 40 years, Michael, had passed away had been a long, quiet exercise in learning to live with the echoes in our small, paid-off home. He had been a prudent man, a quiet investor, and had left me financially secure, a fact I held with a quiet, private gratitude. But the house, once filled with his warm laughter and the sound of his jazz records, was now just empty. My daughter, Regina, was my only child and my only remaining family. At 43, she was a woman of sharp, polished ambition, married to a man, Preston Vance, who shared her taste for the finer things in life. My heart ached with a profound loneliness, a loneliness that Regina seemed to notice with a new, almost clinical concern. "Mama," she began one afternoon, her voice a symphony of practiced empathy, "it's not healthy for you to be so isolated. You're so vibrant, so full of life. You need companionship. You need to get out there again." She had a solution, of course. A local senior social group, one that met twice a week at the community center. "They have card games, book clubs, even a little dance now and then," she'd urged. "Just try it for me." I was hesitant. My grief was still a raw, tender thing. But her insistence, her apparent concern for my well-being, was a balm to my lonely soul. And so I agreed. The senior group was pleasant enough, a collection of quiet souls like myself, all navigating the strange, uncharted waters of their later years. And it was there on my third visit that I met him. Harrison Sterling. He was 68, a widower, he said, whose own wife had been taken by cancer a few years prior. He was the picture of distinguished, old-world charm. He was handsome, with a full head of silver hair, kind, intelligent eyes, and a smile that could melt the winter frost. He spoke with a gentle, calming voice, and he listened, truly listened, in a way that made me feel seen for the first time in a very long time. He swept me off my feet. Our courtship was a whirlwind, a beautiful, dizzying dream. He brought me flowers, took me to quiet, elegant dinners, read me poetry on my porch swing. He spoke of his own loneliness, of his desire to find a true partner to share his golden years with. I, who had thought my life of love and companionship was over, felt a new, unexpected spring bloom in the winter of my heart. Regina was overjoyed. "Oh, Mama, he's perfect," she'd gushed after meeting him. "So charming, so respectable. It's a second chance at happiness. You deserve this." She encouraged the romance at every turn, her enthusiasm a powerful endorsement that quelled any of my own lingering widowed guilt. After a whirlwind 3-month romance, Harrison proposed. On one knee in my own garden, under the soft glow of the evening stars. I had wept with a joy so profound it was almost painful, and I had said yes. We were married in a small, simple ceremony at the courthouse, with Regina and Preston as our witnesses. My daughter had never looked happier for me. She called Harrison her mother's blessing, her second chance. I believed, the luckiest woman alive. I had found love again, a quiet, dignified love to see me through my final years. And I had my daughter by my side, her apparent joy in my own happiness, a final, beautiful healing of my grief. I was so blind, so blissfully, foolishly blind. The first year of my marriage to Harrison was a dream. He was everything a lonely widow could ever hope for, attentive, loving, and deeply respectful of my life and my home. He moved into my house, but he did so with a gentle deference, always making it clear that this was Loretta's house, a place he was merely a grateful guest in. He learned the names of my roses, he complimented my cooking, he sat with me in the evenings, holding my hand while we listened to Michael's old jazz records. The hollow silence of my home was filled once more with the quiet, comfortable sounds of a shared life. My daughter, Regina, and her husband, Preston, were frequent visitors, their presence a constant, cheerful affirmation of our new, blended family. They doted on Harrison, treating him with a respect and admiration that warmed my heart. "It's so wonderful to see you so happy, Mama," Regina would say, her eyes shining. "Harrison is such a good man. He takes such wonderful care of you." It was Harrison and Regina who, about 6 months into our marriage, first brought up the idea of simplifying my finances. "Loretta, my love," Harrison had said one evening, his tone one of gentle, loving concern, "you have so many different accounts, these old investment portfolios from Michael. It's a lot for you to manage. What if we were to consolidate everything into a single, simple family trust? It would make everything so much easier, so much more secure." Regina had eagerly agreed. "He's right, Mama. It's the smart thing to do for estate planning. And I can help. My husband, Preston Vance, his firm has a fantastic estate lawyer. We could even make me a co-trustee just to help you with the complex paperwork, to take that burden off your shoulders. Seems so sensible, so loving. My 2 most trusted advisors, my new husband and my only daughter, working together to secure my future." I agreed without a second thought. We spent a week with their lawyer, a slick, fast-talking man who explained the benefits of the trust in a torrent of confusing legal jargon. I signed the documents where they told me to, my heart full of gratitude for their care and their foresight. My entire estate, my life savings, the legacy of my dear Michael, was now in a joint trust with my daughter as the co-trustee. The first red flag, the first dissonant note in my perfect new life, came from my old neighbor, Miss Pearl Washington. At 85, Pearl was sharp as a tack, a woman who missed nothing from the quiet perch of her front porch swing. "Loretta," she'd said to me one afternoon as we were chatting over the garden fence, "that new husband of yours, Mr. Sterling, he's a very charming man." "He is, Pearl," I'd replied with a smile. "A true blessing." She'd looked at me then, her eyes narrowed with a shrewd, bird-like intensity. "Funny thing though," she'd continued, her voice a low, conspiratorial murmur. "I could have sworn I saw him months ago, before you ever joined that senior group. I saw him having a very intense coffee meeting with your daughter, Regina, at that little cafe downtown. They were huddled over some papers, looked like they were making a deal." I had laughed a little too quickly. "Oh, Pearl, you must be mistaken. They only met for the first time when I brought Harrison home for dinner." "Maybe so," she'd said, though her eyes told me she didn't believe it for a second. "But it's a strange coincidence, isn't it?" I dismissed it, of course. Pearl was getting on in years, her memory not what it used to be. It was a simple mistake. But her words planted a tiny, almost imperceptible, seed of unease in the back of my mind. The seed began to sprout a few months later when the vitamins started. "Loretta, darling," Harrison had said one morning, placing a small, unmarked pill bottle on my bedside table. "I was talking to a friend of mine, a naturopathic doctor. He recommended these for you. A special blend of herbs and vitamins, to help with memory and, the effects of aging. To keep you sharp." Regina was there, nodding in enthusiastic agreement. "Yes, Mama. It's all natural. It will do you a world of good." I, who had never been sick a day in my life, was suddenly being prescribed a regimen of special vitamins for my aging mind. But I trusted them. My husband, my daughter, they loved me. They were just concerned. So I took the pills. Every morning without question. And that's when my perfect happy world began to grow foggy, confusing, and terrifyingly dark. The special vitamins were a slow, insidious poison. At first, the changes were subtle, easy to dismiss. I would find myself standing in the middle of a room, having completely forgotten why I had entered it. I would lose my train of thought mid-sentence, the words dissolving on my tongue. I, who had once prided myself on my sharp librarian's mind, a mind that could recall the Dewey Decimal Number for obscure 19th century poetry, now struggled to remember the name of my own next-door neighbor. Harrison and Regina were always there, their faces a mask of loving, patient concern. "It's all right, my love," Harrison would say, taking my hand when I'd struggle for a word. "Just take your time. It happens to all of us. See, Mama," Regina would add, her voice full of a gentle, pitying sadness. "This is why we were so worried. Your memory, it's just not what it used to be. It's a good thing we're here to help you." They were gaslighting me, using the very real, chemically induced symptoms of my confusion as proof of my natural decline. They were building a case against my sanity, and I, in my foggy, medicated state, was their star witness. My own mind was becoming a prison, its walls built from their lies and my own growing self-doubt. I started to feel a constant low-level anxiety. Was I becoming senile? Was I losing my grip on reality? The world, which had once been so clear and so ordered, now felt like a confusing, threatening place. I began to rely on them for everything, my independence eroding with each passing day. They would help me with my mail, manage my phone calls, simplify my life by taking over every small decision. I was becoming a child again, a helpless ward in my own home, and they were my kind, patient, and utterly controlling keepers. Their monstrous, brilliant plan was working perfectly. They were slowly, systematically erasing me, turning me into the confused, incompetent old woman they needed me to be to justify their final, ultimate act of theft. The fatal mistake, the one small, arrogant slip-up that would bring their entire evil enterprise crashing down, came on a Tuesday afternoon. Harrison had been on a long, important phone call in his study. I was in the kitchen trying to focus on the simple, familiar task of peeling potatoes for dinner, my hands trembling slightly. He emerged from his study looking flustered and rushed out the front door, shouting something about being late for an appointment. And there on the kitchen counter where he had so carelessly left it, was his phone. But it wasn't his usual phone, the one he used for his daily calls. It was a different one, a sleek, black, unfamiliar model. His second phone. His secret phone. His burner phone. My heart began to pound, a frantic, panicked rhythm against my ribs. My mind, foggy as it was, screamed at me. Look at it. With a hand that shook with a mixture of terror and a strange, exhilarating sense of defiance, I picked it up. And by some miracle, some act of a guardian angel who had finally decided enough was enough, it was unlocked. I tapped the photo gallery icon. And the world, my foggy, confusing, gaslit world, suddenly horribly snapped into sharp, terrifying focus. It was filled with pictures. Not of me, not of our life together, but of them. Harrison and Regina. My husband and my daughter. Pictures that stretched back for years, long before I had ever met Harrison. Pictures of them on vacation together. Pictures of them in expensive restaurants, toasting with champagne. Pictures of them in a hotel room, wrapped in each other's arms, a look of smug, conspiratorial intimacy on their faces. They weren't just partners in crime. They were lovers. A wave of nausea so profound it almost buckled my knees washed over me. I stumbled to a chair, my hand over my mouth, a silent scream trapped in my throat. I scrolled further, my fingers numb, my mind a raging torrent of disbelief and horror. Then I found the text messages. A long, sordid, and utterly damning history of their entire monstrous plot. It was all there. In black and white. Regina's first message to him from over 2 years ago. Found a new mark. My mother. Recently widowed, lonely, and sitting on a fortune. Are you in? His reply, always, my love. Send me the details. What's her story? Their meticulous planning. Their research into my finances. Their recruitment of the lawyer who had drafted the trust. Their discussions about the special vitamins they were giving me, the ones designed to induce mild temporary cognitive impairment. The memory loss is kicking in nicely, one of Regina's recent texts read. She barely knows what day it is. The doctor says another month of this and she'll be a perfect candidate for a competency hearing. And the final devastating message, the one that shattered the last of my soul. As soon as she's in the nursing home, Harrison had written, and we have control of the assets, you and I are moving to Tuscany. A new life, my love. Built on the foundation of your mother's very comfortable, very quiet retirement. They were going to have me committed. They were going to steal everything I owned and then abandon me in a nursing home to rot, while they lived a life of luxury in Italy on my money. The betrayal was so absolute, so complete, so monstrous, it was almost beyond comprehension. My daughter. My husband. The two people I loved and trusted most in the world. They were not my family. They were my predators. I sat there in the quiet of my kitchen, the secret phone clutched in my hand, and I felt the heartbroken, confused old woman they had so carefully created begin to die. And in her place, a new woman was born. A woman of ice and fire and a righteous fury so profound it was almost holy. They thought they had made me a fool. They had no idea they had just created a queen, a warrior, a woman who was about to burn their entire world to the ground. The first thing I did after uncovering their monstrous conspiracy was a simple, profound act of self-preservation. I walked to the bathroom, took the bottle of special vitamins from the medicine cabinet, and flushed every single one of the small white chalky pills down the toilet. I watched as they swirled and disappeared, a symbolic purging of their poison from my life. Then I began to fight back. My mind, now free from the fog of the drugs they had been feeding me, was working with a startling, almost frightening clarity. The years I had spent as a librarian, a keeper of facts, a navigator of complex systems, all came rushing back to me. They had thought my mind was my weakness. It was about to become my greatest weapon. I knew I couldn't act alone. I needed an ally, someone I could trust implicitly, someone who could see past the confused old woman facade they had so carefully constructed. I thought of my neighbor, Miss Pearl Washington, a woman of 85, sharp as a tack, with a no-nonsense demeanor and a fierce loyalty that was legendary on our quiet street. She had been the one who had first planted the seed of suspicion about Regina and Harrison. She had seen the truth when I had been too blind, too trusting to see it myself. I called her, my voice low and urgent. "Pearl," I whispered, "I need you. Something terrible has happened." She was at my back door in less than 5 minutes, her face a mask of worried concern. I let her in, my hands shaking, and I showed her everything. The secret phone. The pictures. The vile, damning text messages. She read them in a grim, silent fury, her usual cheerful expression hardening into a mask of pure, cold rage. "That no-good two-faced snake," she hissed when she finished, her voice a low, dangerous rumble. "And your own daughter. Loretta, my dear, they are not just thieves. They are monsters." She looked at me, her eyes blazing with a protective fire. "What do you need me to do?" "I need a lawyer, Pearl," I said. "A real one. A shark. Someone who will not be intimidated by their lies." Pearl nodded, her mind already working. "I know just the woman," she said. "My own niece, Diane Warren. She's the best, and she has a particular passion for cases of elder fraud. She will eat these two for breakfast." While Pearl made the call to her niece, I took the next crucial step. I went back to the secret phone. I knew I couldn't keep it. They would eventually realize it was missing. So with a steady hand I began to document the evidence. I took pictures of every single incriminating text message, every damning photograph with my own phone. I then emailed the entire collection of evidence to a new secret email account I created, an account they knew nothing about. I then, with a sense of grim satisfaction, deleted the entire photo gallery and text history from their burner phone and placed it back on the kitchen counter, exactly where Harrison had left it. The evidence was now mine, secure, and they were none the wiser. My meeting with Diane Warren was 2 days later, at her discreet downtown office. She was a woman in her 40s, with a sharp, intelligent face and eyes that seemed to see right through you. I told her my story, my voice calm, my narrative supported by the mountain of digital evidence I had collected. She was, as Pearl had predicted, appalled and professionally invigorated. "Loretta," she said, her voice a mixture of sympathy and a lawyer's joyful bloodlust, "this is not just a case of financial exploitation. This is a criminal conspiracy involving your daughter, her husband Preston, and Mr. Sterling. The premeditation, the use of drugs to induce cognitive decline, the plan to have you fraudulently committed. This is a case that will not just win you back your fortune. It will likely send all 3 of them to prison." Our strategy was a 3-pronged attack. First, we would play their game. We would let them proceed with their plan to have me declared incompetent. We would let them walk into their own trap. "You must continue to play the part of the confused, declining old woman, Loretta," Diane had instructed. "Let them get comfortable. Let them get arrogant. Let them believe they have won. We want them to present their fraudulent power of attorney, their hired gun doctor, their entire web of lies in a formal setting. We want them to commit perjury. Second, while they were busy plotting my demise, we would be building our own unassailable case." Diane's team began a deep dive into their finances, uncovering the shell companies they had set up, the assets they had already stolen and hidden. We got a sworn affidavit from Ms. Pearl, detailing her own observations. And we prepared our own secret weapon, a full, independent neuropsychological evaluation for me, to be conducted by a renowned expert, which would prove beyond any doubt my sound mind. The final piece of our plan was the most audacious. They are planning to liquidate your entire investment portfolio at a final meeting with your financial advisor, Diane had said, a dangerous glint in her eye. We will let them schedule that meeting. We will let them walk into that room, their fraudulent documents in hand, so confident of their victory. She smiled a slow, cold smile. And we will have a few surprise guests waiting for them. The trap was set. The waiting was an agony of nerves and a quiet, simmering rage. I had to live in the same house as my own would-be destroyers, to smile at them, to play the part of their victim, all while knowing the terrible truth of their monstrous betrayal. But my resolve never wavered. They had tried to steal my mind, my fortune, my life. They had no idea that I, their confused old mother, was about to become the architect of their final, spectacular and very public downfall. The weeks leading up to the final confrontation were a masterclass in psychological warfare. A quiet, tense chess game played out in the sunlit rooms of my own home. I was an actress in the most important role of my life, the role of the confused, declining old woman my daughter and her co-conspirators so desperately needed me to be. It was the most difficult, most draining performance I have ever given. Every morning, Harrison would bring me my special vitamins with a glass of water, his face a mask of loving concern. "Here you go, my love," he'd say, his voice a smooth, gentle poison. "These will help clear the fog." I would take the pills, my hand trembling for effect, and then when he was gone, I would discreetly dispose of them, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a cold, hard fury. I was living with my own would-be poisoner, and I had to smile and thank him for his care. Regina, my daughter, would help me with my daily affairs, her help a constant, subtle campaign of gaslighting. She would move my reading glasses and then find them for me, chiding me gently for being so forgetful. She would ask me the same question 3 times in a row, then sigh with theatrical sadness when I would become quite justifiably irritated. "See, Harrison," she'd say later, her voice loud enough for me to overhear. "She's getting so agitated, so paranoid." The doctor was right. They were building their case against me, brick by insidious brick, and I had to stand by and let them, all while secretly building my own far more powerful case against them. My only lifeline was my secret late-night phone calls with my lawyer, Diane, and my quiet afternoon teas with my neighbor, Ms. Pearl, who would visit under the guise of a friendly chat, but who was, in fact, my co-conspirator, my lookout, my source of strength. "They're getting more confident, Loretta," Pearl had whispered to me one afternoon, her eyes sharp. "I saw all 3 of them, Regina, Preston, and that slick lawyer of theirs, meeting again yesterday. They were laughing." "Good," I had replied, a small, cold smile on my lips. "Let them laugh. The arrogant are always the most blind." While they were busy plotting, Diane and her team were assembling a fortress of evidence against them. We had the text messages from the burner phone. We had the financial records detailing their theft. We had the sworn affidavit from Ms. Pearl. And we had my own secret weapon, the results of my independent neuropsychological evaluation. I had spent 2 full days with a court-appointed expert, a man who had subjected me to a battery of tests that had left my brain buzzing. His conclusion, now in a sealed report in Diane's safe, was unequivocal. I was a woman of superior intelligence and sound mind, with no signs of cognitive decline whatsoever. The final stage of their plan, as we had learned from their text messages, was a meeting with my longtime financial advisor, Mr. Henderson. They had scheduled it for a Friday afternoon. Their goal was to present him with their fraudulent power of attorney, a document they believed gave them the legal right to liquidate my entire investment portfolio, a sum totaling several $1,000,000. They believed I would be there, a quiet, confused, and compliant prop in their final act of theft. And I would be. But I would not be alone. The day of the meeting, my nerves were stretched to their absolute limit. Regina, Preston, and Harrison were in high spirits, their victory so close they could almost taste it. They helped me dress, their hands on me feeling like the touch of spiders, their voices full of a cloying false sweetness. "It's just a simple meeting with Mr. Henderson, Mama," Regina had said, adjusting the collar of my blouse. "Just to simplify your accounts. You just need to sit there and smile. We'll handle all the talking." "Of course, dear," I had murmured, playing my part to the very end. As we drove to the financial advisor's downtown office, I looked out the window at the city, at the people rushing by, living their normal lives, and I felt a profound sense of unreality. I was a 65-year-old woman on her way to a meeting where her own daughter, her son-in-law, and the man she had married were planning to steal her entire life savings and then have her committed to a nursing home. It was a plot so monstrous, so evil, it felt like something out of a cheap paperback novel. But it was my life. We walked into Mr. Henderson's elegant office. He greeted us with a professional, unreadable smile. He knew, of course. Diane had briefed him. He was a part of our trap. We sat around his large, polished conference table. Regina, Preston, and Harrison on one side looking confident, triumphant. Me on the other looking, I hoped, frail, confused, and utterly defeated. "Well," Mr. Henderson began, "thank you all for coming in. As I understand it, you will now be managing your mother's financial affairs, is that correct?" "That's right," Regina said, pulling a thick document from her briefcase with a flourish. "We have my mother's full power of attorney. She has decided, given her condition, that it is for the best. We're here today to begin the process of liquidating her portfolio and consolidating the assets into a more manageable trust." She slid the fraudulent document across the table. Mr. Henderson picked it up, his expression grave. He looked at the forged signature, then at me, a silent, questioning look in his eyes. This was my signal. I took a deep, steadying breath, and I gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. The trap was about to spring. The moment I gave my quiet signal, the atmosphere in that polished, sunlit conference room shifted. The air grew thick, heavy, charged with an energy that was about to explode. Regina, Preston, and Harrison were still smiling, so confident in their victory, so sure of their power, that they didn't even notice the subtle change in my demeanor, the new, cold light in my eyes. Mr. Henderson, my financial advisor, examined the fraudulent power of attorney they had so arrogantly placed on his desk. He held it up to the light, his expression one of grave, professional concentration. "I see," he said slowly, his voice a low, serious rumble. "A power of attorney granting you, Mrs. Vance, full and complete control over your mother's entire estate." "That's correct," Regina said, her voice full of a smug satisfaction. "As you can see, it is all perfectly legal and in order. We would like to begin the liquidation of her assets immediately." "I see," Mr. Henderson said again. He then looked directly at me, his gaze full of a quiet, unspoken question. "And you are in full agreement with this, Loretta?" Before I could answer, Regina jumped in, her voice a little too loud, a little too sharp. "Of course she is. My mother understands that she is no longer capable of managing these complex affairs. We are simply doing what is best for her." "Is that so?" a new voice said, a voice that was calm, clear, and cut through the tension in the room like a surgeon's scalpel. The door to the conference room, which I had thought was closed, swung open. Standing in the doorway was my lawyer, Diane Warren, a vision of righteous fury in a tailored power suit. And behind her, two large uniformed police detectives. Regina, Preston, and Harrison froze, their faces a mask of pure, horrified disbelief. Their triumphant smiles melted away, replaced by a dawning, panicked terror. What is the meaning of this?" Regina stammered, her gaze darting from the detectives to me, her mind clearly unable to process this impossible turn of events. "The meaning of this, Mrs. Vance," Diane said, walking slowly into the room, her eyes fixed on Regina with a cold, predatory intensity, "is that you, your husband Mr. Preston Vance, and your associate Mr. Harrison Sterling, are under investigation for conspiracy to commit fraud and felony elder abuse." She placed a thick binder on the conference table with a satisfying thud. "This," she said, tapping the binder, "is the evidence. Text messages, photographs, financial records, all detailing your monstrous, premeditated plan to defraud your own mother, Mrs. Loretta Gibbs." She then turned to the financial advisor. "Mr. Henderson," she said, "I believe these three were just attempting to use a forged power of attorney to make a fraudulent transaction. Is that correct?" Mr. Henderson, his face a mask of grim satisfaction, nodded. "That is correct, Ms. Warren. The transaction has been halted." The detective stepped forward. "Regina Vance, Preston Vance, Harrison Sterling," one of them said, his voice a flat, official monotone, "you are under arrest." The chaos that erupted then was a beautiful, satisfying thing to behold. Regina shrieked, a raw, animal sound of pure, cornered terror. Preston blanched, his face ashen, while Harrison, the charming, sophisticated con artist, just seemed to collapse in on himself. They were handcuffed, their protests, their denials, their pathetic last-ditch lies, all dissolving in the face of the undeniable, irrefutable evidence of their own monstrous conspiracy. As they were being led out of the room, their heads bowed in shame, Regina looked at me one last time, her eyes blazing with a venomous, impotent hatred. "How?" she whispered, her voice a raw croak. "How did you know?" I looked at my daughter, the child I had loved so dearly, the woman who had so brutally betrayed me, and I felt nothing but a profound, weary pity. "You made one mistake, Regina," I said softly, my voice clear and strong. "You thought that because my heart was broken, my mind was too. You were wrong." The aftermath was swift and just. The evidence against them, collected from their own secret phone, was overwhelming. They were charged, tried, and convicted. Their monstrous plot, their years of manipulation and deceit, all laid bare in a court of law. They were sentenced to long, well-deserved prison terms. I, with the help of my lawyer and my dear friend, Miss Pearl, reclaimed my life. My fortune was restored, my home was my own again, my mind was clear. The trust they had tried to use to steal from me was dissolved, and a new one was created in its place. The Loretta Gibbs Foundation for Elder Justice, a non-profit dedicated to providing legal aid and support to other victims of elder fraud. My revenge was not just in their imprisonment, not just in the reclaiming of my assets. It was in the transformation of my own pain into a source of power, of purpose. They had tried to make me a victim, a footnote in their own greedy story. Instead, I have become the author of my own triumphant final chapter. I had faced down the devils who had infested my life, and I had won. And in doing so, I had found not just justice, but a new, profound, and unbreakable peace.